Hey, what's up? It's Silas back again for book number 7, Unreasonable Hospitality. The book is written by Will Guidara. I think his name is pronounced that way. And Will is or was an owner of the #1 restaurant in the world at one point, 11 Madison Park. And he writes the story of how he and his team went from obscurity, no one knowing their restaurant and what it was about, to being ranked the #1 restaurant in the world. And it was a tough journey for he and his team. And he breaks down that process of how that took place. There are a lot of lessons that I learned from this book. And I read it actually, I think I finished the book a couple of weeks ago, and I was delaying posting this because I actually attended a conference that was sponsored by Will and a number of other corporate sponsors called the Welcome Conference, which was in Chicago on June 26th of 2023. I'm recording this on June 28th. But I finished the book earlier in June, and I wanted to record this after attending the conference. It's a one-day conference about hospitality, and I won't go too far into that, but a number of speakers gave insight into how to remain inspired and to remain in your purpose if you're in a hospitality space. I'm not directly in the hospitality space, but I often do work with people and groups that are responsible for being hospitable to other people. And so me going to the conference and me delaying the recording of this review was based on me wanting to get some inspiration and also information from that conference. But the book itself, again, Unreasonable Hospitality, is a book that is about getting to a point where we give more to other people than they expect. And so this restaurant, is in New York, 11 Madison Park. And he talks about how, not just from a menu perspective, not just from an ambiance perspective, but the entire experience of being in 11 Madison Park, what that does for a person who is coming in to get a meal. There were a lot of great examples of the team going above and beyond with respect to hospitality. But the biggest question that Will posed in the book is, how do you standardize going above and beyond? If you're going to be a hero for the people that come in and eat at your restaurant, or come into your barbershop and get a haircut, or come into your bar and get a drink, or come into your church to hear the word, how do you provide a level of hospitality that is above and beyond? And then how do you reset the standard where above and beyond is a typical experience at your establishment? He gives some really good examples about that in the book. And one of the things he starts with is this idea that we've got to realize that people never stop wanting to be taken care of. We all want to be taken care of in some way or another. And when we get to a point where we feel like no one can take care of us, we can take care of ourselves. Just imagine going to the barber shop and getting a haircut and then still having to go home and line up your hair after paying to have your hair cut, right? That's not a good feeling. Imagine going to a restaurant and eating a meal, but it just doesn't have that savory taste, and you find yourself in the fast food line after you've gone to dinner. It's these sorts of experiences that we all have had at some point or another, in some instance or another. And what he talks about in the book is that we never lose that desire for people to take care of us. The idea of she gets me, or he gets me, or she understands me exactly, or he understands me exactly, is what we're looking for in our life experiences. And so for a person who's providing service or hospitality, the goal is to make people feel like you understand them totally. The goal is to be so much of an impact in someone's life that They want to talk about you. They want to talk about the experience you provided them. And they want to actually go back and experience that, not just one more time, but multiple times. He talks a bit about in the book how in the hospitality industry, people who work alongside one another are often focused on serving or being hospitable to people that are coming in and patronizing the establishment. But Will resets my mind and will reset your mind if you read the book to understand that you must first serve the people you work with. It's one thing to work alongside people. It's a totally different thing to work alongside them in harmony. He gives an example of ballet and how oftentimes in teams, in business, we like to compare our teams to sports teams. But basketball teams, football teams, baseball teams, there's often psychological collisions, but also physical collisions. And so he talks about the team in the restaurant 11 Madison Park operating as a ballet team, where physically they work and create systems where they don't bump into each other physically. And they also create an environment where they aren't bumping into each other psychologically or from a philosophical perspective either. So the fact that he took a step back to say you must serve each other first, I thought was a really good point that he made in the book. He also talked about the proper way to criticize people that are on your team. He talked about rules and how rules should not be in the way, but they should also always bring people together. The reverence that we have for one another as a team should always be very high. And if we go into a team setting where we're working with other people and we're setting out to do that work, we should always be thinking about how can I be the top 2 or 3 people, or one of the top 2 or 3 people on this team. That should always be an aspiration. And he talks about being reminded of what you said on your entry interviews when you were going after those jobs. One of the biggest things is that in the book, he talks a bit about hospitality being scary, or unreasonable hospitality being scary. And then he breaks down how the most scary thing is not doing anything better. It's keeping things as is. And I think in the world that we live in today, we're all in this sort of like jockeying state where we're jockeying for position with respect to relevancy and being able to be valuable. And so going above and beyond is not just about doing extra things to make people smile, but it's really about staying relevant. People are looking for over-the-top experiences now. And so this book really goes into detail about his own personal story, his life growing up working in restaurants, his life being in management in restaurants, and how that relates to all walks of life. And for most of us, we don't see ourselves in the service industry, but we are in fact all in the service and hospitality industry. So Unreasonable Hospitality, a very good book. I've always said this on my reviews. I recommend every book I read. I think there's a value anytime you sit down and read a book that provides any insight. Anytime a person sits and writes 300 or 400 pages, it means they've taken the time to be able to put that thought together, and they're not just blowing talk in the wind. So I recommend the book, but I would definitely recommend the book specifically to people that own small businesses and you're looking to create a synergy in your office, in your shop, in your place of work. If you're looking to inspire the people that work around you, or if you're looking to get them to understand the importance of hospitality, I would recommend this book to anyone that owns a small business and you're looking to create a synergy between you and the people that are on your team. If you don't own a business, that doesn't mean you can't read the book, but that's just my specific recommendation based on my feedback. I would also challenge restaurant owners or business owners to look into the Welcome Conference next year. It's a very good trip for you and your team if you have that expense item or that budget item within your budget. It's a getaway, but it's also an opportunity to recharge. So again, I know I've been showing this book multiple times in this video, but I really want you to check it out, Unreasonable Hospitality. It was recommended to me by a good friend of mine who himself is in the hospitality business but in a different light. He's a firefighter. And so we often overlook the importance of hospitality in every industry, and certainly being a firefighter, a first responder, a police officer, being a nurse at a hospital, again, as I mentioned earlier, working at a church, being a bartender. We're all providing these sort of hospitable experiences, hopefully. And if you're not at the level where you think you should be, then by all means, I think you should pick up the book. So I appreciate you guys for always watching these reviews. I try to keep them short and concise, and hopefully they are inspirational for you to actually go out and to make a purchase of a book. And for me, I read 10 pages a day. It takes about 20-25 minutes out of my day. This is book 7 of the year. I've actually finished book 8, but I haven't done a recording yet, and I'm on book 9 now as we speak. So we're not even at the halfway mark of 2023. My point is, you can take 10 pages a day and knock out a lot of books and get a lot of knowledge. So like and subscribe to this page. I thank you guys for always tuning in. Until the next time, I'll see you soon.